Welcome to Own the Season podcast. We will talk to industry insiders along with outdoor enthusiasts to help you own your season. Now let's join hosts Art and Michelle Helen with Brad Jones. Own the Season podcast is brought to you by The Hunter's Vault. Cool, protect, and age your harvest with great results. Full size, but yet portable. The Hunter's Vault. Find out more at thehuntersvault.com.
Hi, and welcome to Own the Season podcast. Today it's a little different. Michelle is, she's out helping my niece get ready for graduation. So it is myself, Brad Jones, and our guest today is Lincoln Rohn from Packer Maxx. And glad to have you here. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, thank you. Good to be here.
Good. So it's getting the end of turkey season finally. I should say warming up, but yesterday we woke up to like 39 degrees here in Southwest Wisconsin. So I am not quite sure, what's going on with Mother Nature this year. But now they're talking 90 by Wednesday. So
right. Yeah.
She's
off her meds or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think so.
She's something, but I don't really want to say what it is right now. So,
right.
But anyway, so we're trying to get our food plots in. Everybody's going gangbusters right now, trying to get ground tilled or sprayed or different things, and they're afraid. And I know that not only Packer Maxx, but you do a lot of food plot work, and so at this time of year, what are you really concentrating on? What are you looking forward for, and how do you set things up and use your equipment?
It has been a bit of a challenging spring for sure. And I don't know, I think you guys got some of the moisture we got, but our entire property was basically underwater for the better part of March and April. We have not had a flooding like this before ever. Our barn out back was, surrounded by, it was like a little island. It was, a foot of water surrounding it where there's never been water before. And so that has made it super challenging. I just last night was able to get on one of our fields, and I finished Packer Maxxing it via headlights last night because I was trying to get ahead of the rain that we had coming today. And it almost never works out, but I got it planted and packed in last night, and it rained throughout the night, and so that should be off to the races now. So that was good.
Are you tilling and using the cultipacker behind it after you seed, or?
Yeah, so we normally I've kind of gone to I understand the whole, I've done a lot of research on the no-till and this and that, and I understand it. We have gone to what we call a minimal till. I set a stop on my 3-point. I'm only going down an inch or two, but I am, I am stuffing that top couple of inches just to be able to get that seed, packed in and ensure that I'm getting seed soil contact. I've had a lot better success doing that than just trying to broadcast into, killed vegetation and packing it and walking away. It's just definitely worked better for us doing it that way with that minimal till. That way you're not stirring up, a million years of weed seed. You're not killing a bunch of your organic, or your bio, I don't know why the word is slipping me, but you're not killing the organisms in the soil.
Right.
You are exposing it to sunlight, but, and if you time it right, like I said, I was packing by headlights last night. If you time it right and get rain relatively quickly, and that stuff gets germinated, you're going to be shading that soil out, relatively quickly. So, I actually did a podcast a while back with the working class bow hunter guys in Austin. He's a farmer. He's a row crop farmer, and he actually sold his drill because he said, I get so much better results by lightly tilling, broadcasting, and Packer Maxing than than I was getting with my drill. And so he sold his drill. So, and I'm not saying there's not a time and place for a drill. I'm not saying that at all. But on a smaller scale, if you're doing 1 or 2 acre food plots, even 3 acres, our plot out back is 3 acres, and tilling and broadcasting and packing really works well. I actually dragged my plot last night. I have one of those infield drags.
Yeah.
And it just lightly drags it, because that way we have so many turkeys now. Like, if you don't drag it, and they're just going to walk away with all your seed. So,
Sure.
So we just, I drag it a little. I just lightly drag it and then call the packet, and man, we should be off to the races. So
yeah, not everybody can budget for that no-till planter, and I've done the method that you're talking about for years. And
yep.
It's worked awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Success. Yeah,
and to your point, like, these drills nowadays, even the small 4-footers are $15,000 or more. Like, I love deer hunting. I spend a lot of money and time on deer hunting, but I am not going to spend $15,000 on a drill. I'm just not going to do it. So
we're not trying to crop out and make money off the crop like that.
Right.
We're just feeding the wildlife.
Right. And and I'm going to say in a 90% of my customers or people that I talk to that are planting food plots, not even they're doing 1 acre fields. They're not doing 5, 6, 7 acre fields by and large. So that's where the Packer Maxx and that system really shines. There's other techniques you can use for sure. Like, you can the buckwheat transfer that Jeff Sturgis, is a big advocate for. I think he's originally a Michigan guy, but he was in Wisconsin for years. But he sprays, I think 2 times in the spring, broadcast buckwheat onto the soil, cultipacks it with the Packer Maxx, doesn't till it, cultipacks it. That buckwheat comes up, and then in the 8 weeks later, he's broadcasting his cereal grains or his brassicas into that standing buckwheat, and then crushing it down with the Packer Maxx, and then spraying it, just to ensure that if there is any weed competition in there, that that it's gone. So that's been I did that on our backfield. We call it the Dust Bowl. We're trying to build the soil up in there. I did that last year, and that actually worked pretty good with that buckwheat rotation. So there's different methods you can use. There is some some no-till options available. We've done that, and just in a grassy. One of our food plots was underwater. We couldn't get equipment to it, so throughout the summer it just kind of had like swamp grass in it, basically, for lack of a better term. And I went in and broadcast cereal grains into that, cultipacked it like crazy, just really went over it a few different times, and then sprayed that grass with glyphosate right over top of the seed. You won't kill your seed with glyphosate, and man, it really did well. So there are there's some different methods that you can use. You just kind of got to adapt and use what you got, and you don't need $15,000 drill in a $30,000, $40,000 tractor to pull it off. Yeah. If you have a sprayer, a quad runner, and a cultipacker, preferably a Packer Maxx,
right?
You're going to be able to be pretty successful in your food plot program, even if you don't have a tractor and a disc and a tiller. So,
so you're talking about planting these, the different types of seeds. What about, if you wanted to put beans or sorghum or corn? Beans and sorghum are a whole different ballgame, so you can, put those over. But what about corn? I mean, if somebody wanted to try some corn plots without, a $15,000, $20,000 drill. Is it possible?
Absolutely. We do corn and beans all the time. What you can do is, again, lightly till. And this is just a technique that I've used that has worked really good for me. I'll broadcast corn. Sometimes I do corn and beans together. Matter of fact, that's what I'm going to be doing today. But I'll till, and then I'll cultipack so I get the grooves in the soil. I'll broadcast the corn and beans. The corn and beans fall down into those grooves, and then I'll lightly drag it, and then cultipack it again. And I'm here to tell you that has worked incredibly well. So, but you get that seed down there about an inch and a half, and it really does good. And then you can do the same thing with sorghum.
Right. Let's talk about your equipment, the cultipacker.
Yeah.
It looks like you've got a few different types, a few different sizes. Can you just run through like the smallest to the mid-range size?
Yeah. So we have we start out, we call it our standard unit. It's kind of the entry level. It's a 4-footer. It has a tubular steel frame. It does have the cleaner bar, the scraper bar that keeps the mud from building up on it. That is our entry level, and then we move into the heavy duty, which is the HD. That has a 3/8 inch steel frame, and it also has the heavy duty scraper bar. That is probably and we have that in a 4-footer. We have a wheel kit available for that model. That's probably our number one seller is our pull behind 4-footer HD. And then about 50% of the people get wheel kits. If it's a flip over wheel kit, if you're having to go down a road or, gravel, something like that, you're going to want to get a wheel kit. If you're just dragging it down some grassy trails to get to your food plot, you really need one. The 6-foot heavy duty is quickly becoming one of our more popular units. That's quickly catching the 4-footer. A lot of guys are actually selling their 4-footers and getting into the 6-footer. They're especially if you're doing a little bit larger plots, it's so much quicker. You pick up a full pass every other pass. So that 6-footer is quickly catching the 4-footer, but then that also has a 3/8 inch steel frame, and then and you can get with or without wheel kit. And then we have the 3-point hitch models. We have a 4-foot 3-point hitch and a 6-foot 3-point hitch. Also, excellent units, great for small to mid-sized tractors. They work really well. And the nice thing with a 3-point is you can pick it up and spin your tractor around and, go right back in the other direction. In certain areas, the pull behind one can get a little bit tricky, but, there's disadvantages too, because then you got to take the 3-point off to do anything else. So, it just depends on your setup basically. And then we have an 8-foot, which is 2 of the 4-footers gang together, and guys that are doing big 5-acre plots or whatever or bigger, they're a lot of those guys are running the 8-footer. So yeah, we have a wide range of models. We do have the crimper combo also, which has a crimper cage on the top, and you flip it over onto that, and you use the weight of the drum to do your crimping. So, again, jury's still out on the effectiveness of crimping, but a lot of guys are doing it. And, as long as you do it in the right stage of growth, like cereal rye, you have to do it when it's in this dough stage, to get the most effective, termination of the crop on it. So, but again, that's a no-till, kind of a no-till technique that a lot of people have been going to. So,
and what really separates, the Packer Maxx from, because people go out and they'll look and, if you look online and you see it, and then you look at it and say, well, I've got a yard roller.
Yep.
So kind of, explain the big differences and the benefits of, the Packer Maxx over just like a standard yard roller, and how do you get the weight?
Yeah. So one of the big advantages of of the Packer Maxx over, I'll start with like a cast iron Packer is, and we actually have a lot of our customers have had cast iron that have bought our product, because the cast iron ones are such a pain in the butt to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
You can't move them. And the Packer Maxx, you drain the water out. I'll just say the 6-footer, for instance, weighs 150 pounds empty. You can move it. You can slide in the back of a truck and go to another property. You can drive it up onto a trailer super easy. They're very portable and maneuverable. But when you fill it with water, it's 550 pounds, it is very, very effective at, pressing that seed into the soil, getting your good grooves in the soil or for the moisture management. And you don't have to worry about like the cast iron ones. If you hit a rock in a field, man, there's a good chance you're gonna crack one of those cast iron wheels, and then you gotta disassemble the whole thing to replace that one wheel. So
been there, done that. We had brilliant, and it seemed like every season we were tearing it apart.
Yep. Yeah, and it's just the Packer Maxx, man. I'm telling you, people don't understand the how durable those high density polyethylene drums are. Like they're roto molded. I've got video on Facebook of me hitting the drum with a ball peen hammer, and I am getting after it. I mean, I am trying to wreck the thing, and you can't. I mean, I'm not saying you that it's impossible, but man, are they durable? Like I could count out of I don't know, we probably have 15 or 17,000 of these things out in operation right now. I could count on one hand how many have actually been punctured by, something in the field. Usually it's a piece of steel or a re-rod, that somebody hits, and, but it's rare. Like a rock, it just goes right over. I hit some rocks with my tiller last night, and, it goes right over them with the cultipacker. With the Packer Maxx, you don't even know they're there. So they're very durable. The cultipacker or the Packer Maxx versus a lawn roller. So we started down this rabbit hole of food plots 25 years ago, 30 years ago probably, and I've made every mistake there is to make. I've learned a lot along the way, what to do, what not to do. We started out just dragging our fields. Worked okay, got decent germination. When you drag them, especially with a heavier drag, that's why I use that infield drag. You don't move seed around. Like if you're using a heavier drag and it's very inconsistent growth pattern. So then we thought, well, I heard a lot about packing, so then we bought a yard roller, and that worked pretty decent, but still wasn't the ticket. You get a lot of wash, field wash when you're just using a flat surface. I found the Packer Maxx. I don't even remember how I stumbled across it. Saw it, I think, at one of the local sporting goods stores up in northern Michigan, and it just made sense to me with the grooves that were left in the soil, moisture management, erosion control. Those grooves that are left in the soil, it holds that moisture and just allows it to absorb into the soil. And by compressing the soil, you're retaining the moisture that's in there because it's not all aerated. Your germination rates go through the roof. Like if you put down 50 pounds of seed, you want 50 pounds of seed to grow. And by using the Packer Maxx, you're ensuring that you're going to have a very high germination rate. You're getting that seed up and going out of the ground, and it just equates into a better performing all around high performance food plot versus any of the other techniques that we've tried. Now, there's a reason farmers used cultipackers for generations, and that's because they work. And Packer Maxx is a cultipacker that's designed for the hobby farmer, the food plot farmer. Um, it's just a lot easier to manage and maneuver. You can stand it up against the wall in the barn, or some guys even buy like those ladder brackets, and they'll literally hang their Packer Maxx from their barn wall so it's up out of the way for the winter. So, that's kind of the claim to fame is the portability and, the durability. And, one thing that a lot of my customers really like, and something that's hard to find these days, is it's made here in the USA. And our drums are roto-molded right in Wisconsin. And I'm committed to keeping it that way. Like I want our product to be, I'm proud that it's made here in the USA, and we're supporting, people's livelihoods locally. We use a local metal fab shop. We use a fulfillment. Our fulfillment center is, we've got a lot of people that we're responsible for keeping employed, and I'm proud of that. So,
this having the weight and putting the grooves. Now, what if you've didn't get out and frost seed, and now you're like, hey, I need to get out my clover field. I sprayed it,
yep.
And I've got a lot of clover still in it and stuff, but I really need to overseed since I sprayed, because there was actually more weeds in there than I thought there were.
Yep.
Can you just go out and overseed that and then use the Packer Maxx on top? Is there enough weight to drive the seed in, but not enough weight to end up killing that clover off that's there?
So I absolutely use this technique all the time. I just did it a couple of weeks ago on one of our big clover fields. I broadcast, well, a lot of it was underwater. So some of where it was underwater, the clover took a pretty substantial hit. Okay. So I went in, I top seeded the whole field. I filled the cultipacker up. Like I filled it right up, and I cultipacked the whole field. And clover is amazingly resilient, and it's almost crazy. Like when you cultipack a clover field, it like has the same effect as when you mow it. It almost like it like stimulates growth for some reason. So yeah, I'll top seed those spots, and then I'll cultipack it in just to make sure. Frost seeding, I do the same thing. You just because you're frost seeding doesn't mean, you're relying on Mother Nature, but to make sure that you're getting that, just absolutely positive that you're getting that seed to soil contact. I always cultipack our fields after I frost seed. So, yeah, it's definitely a viable thing to do if you're trying to just make darn sure that you've got seed to soil contact.
Huh. So this could be used, thinking outside the box and stuff, for other people that maybe, do smaller food plots, but they have other things like, CRP programs, set aside programs. Yep. This would be a great tool if they don't have those, a tractor or,
yep.
All they have is that ATV or UTV is to go in
yep.
and reseed or redo all their set aside stuff and use this to, ensure that they're going to get good growth by pounding that in the ground.
For sure. We have a lot of, we sell a lot of these to like municipalities, to the U.S. Forest Service has a lot of them. They're doing native grasses and stuff on a smaller scale. The native grasses, it really, I've got landscapers that plant grass with it. They'll go through and they do a finish grade on a house, and they broadcast the seed, and they'll cultipack it with a Packer Maxx and a quad runner. And, it's like, that just flat out works. And, that's the cool part, like how I ended up acquiring this business. I bought one probably 8 years before I bought the business. Packer Maxx has been around since 2003, and but nobody knew about it. And the previous owner, just an outstanding human being, loved the guy to death. But he was not tech savvy. He was advertising in mom and pops, magazines and stuff like that. Well, I got to know him through a deer hunting connection here in Michigan, and we used to have big events and whatnot. And he donated a couple of these events because he was on board with, what we were trying to do. And, Michigan deer hunters, let them go and let them grow. Like, we're trying to, advocate for, selective harvest here in Michigan, because anybody that doesn't live here has heard Michigan pretty much sucks. So, so he didn't do any of that stuff. So he called me one day and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about posting my business for sale on your website. Or on your page? Are you okay with that?" And I said, "Well, let's talk about that first, And so we started talking, and we struck up a deal, and I call it my Shark Tank deal, because I bought the company directly from him. I had to give him a down payment, and then, I paid him a monthly payment and a royalty until the business was paid for. And once I bought it and launched it on social media, it was like a brand new product, because nobody ever seen it. I sold more in the first, quarter that I owned it than he did in 5 years. So, and now, I'm not saying everybody knows about the Packer Maxx, but if you haven't heard about the Packer Maxx, I mean, you probably haven't been on social media a lot. I mean, we've got YouTubers all over the place using it. It's on TV. Guys that buy them love them, and it's nice for me starting out using this product, knowing that it works, that makes a huge difference in your food plot program. It makes it so much easier for me to sell this product, because I believe in it and I know that it works. So that's kind of the how that all transpired. It's been a lot of fun. I get to do what I love, and it's it's a lot of work. You're still operating a business, but we've had good years and bad years. We had a pretty rough go of it under the previous administration, and but we're starting to come back, and the last couple of years have been very, very good. So
awesome, good.
Yeah,
it's good to hear. So I guess let's fast forward to this coming fall, because we're slowly finishing up right now here, that getting close to the 1st of June. And
yep.
So we're slowly finishing up our spring plots and everything else. So, now we have to start focusing on moving forward. And,
yep.
So I like doing, we work with rack fuel seeds, and so I look forward to our fall stuff and getting our fall stuff in. And,
yep.
Here, because we're in the northern part, we aren't planting until that mid-July, end of July, first part of August, right?
Yep.
So, and I know you're doing the same thing over there in Michigan. And so kind of take us through, if you've already got clover, you have something and you're going to start, what are you, really looking at? Are you going to go in there and spray and start the whole process over? Or what are you looking at? How do you, transition into your fall plots and get those to go?
So this is I know every area is different, but where we're at in Michigan, we have, quite sandy soil. Um, we have a fairly high deer density. No matter how many does we shoot, it seems like our population keeps going up. Um, so we have to be so super selective as to what we can plant in the fall that will put up with browse pressure. So here, this is just kind of what we do that has worked really well. I always have a third, probably, I think that field is about 3 acres. I keep that in clover. Um, we just redid it last year, tilled everything up. And I always do fall plantings here just because if you do spring plantings in clover, a lot of times it gets rolling, looking good, and then you run into the drought period through the winter or through the summer, and it just torches it. So what I do for our clover, like we just redid this field, we in late August we got it all tilled up. I planted basically kind of a light planting of oats, a little bit under the recommended pounds per acre, and then we top seed everything with with a clover chicory blend, and then pack it all in. And that clover throughout the fall starts to set its feet, starts because it always develops that root system first, and then the oats act as a nurse crop. And there's also some annual clovers and what we use too, like crimson. So all that acts as a nurse crop. And then the following spring, all that clover is one of the first things to pop. And then typically the oats will not overwinter; they'll freeze out. So you have nothing but nothing but clover in that field, and that has been our number one successful way to plant clover is do a fall planting with a nurse crop. And then this big field that we redid last year, I just got done. We've had a good green up now. The cool season grasses are kicking in, so we just sprayed that field with IMOX to control the broadleaf and the grasses, and just ensure that we're eliminating weed competition in that field. So we keep that field in a perennial clover. So we always have something there. They dig through the snow in the winter, for the clover. It's just like, yes, it's dormant. Yes, it's it's kind of like when deer eat alfalfa hay. Okay, it still has nutritional value. It's dried down, but that's kind of the same principle when they dig through the snow for clover. It's still a high quality forage. It's just dormant, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel it's very important to keep some acreage in a year-round clover. I usually say 10% of your acreage keep in a perennial, if you can. We have 160 acres, so there's really no way that I can keep all do 10%. I can't keep 16 acres in clover. So, but what we do is when we plant in the fall, we use a grain bin blend. It's cereal rye, triticale, and oats, and then we top seed it with clover and radish. Okay, so our cereal grains are what is our main focus for our fall, because that's the only thing that will keep up with the browse pressure that we have from our herd. We try to do some brassicas, but any field we do in brassicas, I always have to top seed some sort of cereal grain in there, because otherwise they'll just be looking at a dirt field, in the middle of October, end of October, because they just destroy them. So, and I don't have enough acreage to put in brassicas to allow them to keep up with the browse pressure. Right. So all of our hunting plots we do in cereal grains, and then top seed it with radish and clover. Same thing happens with the clover. That clover starts to set its feet in the fall, and all these hunting plots, And then that following spring, the first thing to green up is the rye and the triticale and the clover. And so you have an immediate food source in the spring when they're coming out of the winter when they need it the most. As soon as that soil starts getting some sunlight, as soon as it starts to warm, those things are greening up. They're in there hammering them. And then we leave the clover all summer in all of our hunting plots. And we hit all those plots too with IMOX to kill the rye and the triticale, and that leaves just nothing but clover. And then we repeat that process in the fall. We terminate it. I hit it with glyphosate. We've actually switched or added Liberty Ultra to our arsenal for a burn down like you've never seen. Stuff is, brown dead in 36 hours.
Huh.
So, and then we lightly till it and repeat the process. And again, I do try to alternate some brassicas into the property somewhere, but I have to do a light planting, lightly put cereal grains in it, because otherwise it's just going to be a dirt field. So,
right. And so I'm sure you're testing for, fertilizer and fertilizing and liming as need be.
Yep. Yeah. That was kind of the next thing that, we do soil tests. I typically will do them every other season. Or every other year. And then, we started out with a really crappy pH. Like it's all, our food plots are carved out of a pine forest, basically. And so, we're talking like pH was 4.7 to 5. The first year I put 12,000 pounds of lime down on the property, and, to help try to correct some of that pH. And now we do, we do pelletized lime per the soil test, and then we also use a liquid lime, which is immediately available. It just doesn't last as long. So, we do, a combination of things, and then we also use we've added a liquid fertilizer also, and then. I still use some granular, but I use a lot less granular because there's so much, basically, salt in granular fertilizer today. So, and then we use a product called Dairy Dew, which is poultry manure, and it's compressed into pellets. And I love that stuff. I usually do a double application of that stuff because with our sandy soils, that adds organic matter, and it's just really good for your soil too. So, if you look up Dairy Dew, or Food Plot Dew is what we use. So a lot of different things that you can do to just ensure, and a lot of people say, well, this is just, this is just deer, we're just throwing out some stuff to attract them. Well, if that's your goal, that's great. You can do that. But if you mind your soils and amend them correctly, even just your cereal grains are way more palatable and attractive to deer, because, it just, you're increasing the nutrient levels no matter what you're planting if your soil's right.
Right.
So,
and the healthier.
Biggest overlooked thing that a food plotter does, his first mistake is not taking a soil sample.
Absolutely.
I just can't believe that people won't spend that,
yep,
little extra money. Yeah. But yet they'll dump hundreds of dollars in fertilizer, and if you don't have the right pH, that fertilizer isn't going to do you any good. It's not going to be taken up.
Nope. I think it's like, if you have a pH of even at 5.8, you're only using approximately 30% of your fertilizer that you put down. I don't know what that exact number is, but it's not much. But at 6.8, you're using 90%. So, and this liquid fertilizer that we've used too in conjunction, it's carbon based, and every molecule of that bottle is available to the plant, and you're not putting all that sodium or salt into your soil either. So Soil health, man. Again, it's like you said, it's overlooked, and a simple soil test will tell you exactly what you need, and even right down to you can even stipulate what you're planting, so they can make recommendations based on what you're planting.
Right. Well,
So
I mean, healthier soil equals healthier food, and healthier food equals healthier wildlife.
Yes, 100%. And food plotting is interesting because I don't know why it's so addicting, but for me, after I do all the elbow work or the elbow grease and get everything, situated and planted, and man, you're producing a good crop, and to watch a doe and a fawn feeding in your food plot, I don't know why that is so rewarding. It just is.
We've got a lot of them dropping right now. I'm looking at them, in my food plot. I had a set of twins.
Just, you're providing the nutrition. You're providing, you just know that everything that they're eating right there is beneficial. Right. It's beneficial to other wildlife. I've even got, bears come in and eat our clover.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Look at, if you take it and you've got, depending on your herd size, the healthier that food, the other thing that guys don't realize is that, that deer, he might have the genetic potential to top out at 150 inches, at antler growth. But because he has the genetics, but if he doesn't have that healthy food source and getting that, he may only top out at 135 inches or 140 inches. Yep. And so
there's three things you need. You need genetics, you need nutrition, and you need age.
Right.
You can have genetics and nutrition. If you don't have age, you're still not going to get anything. So,
right. So,
which is where we struggle with in Michigan.
Well, and that kind of leads me to my last question before we wrap this up. Kind of off the food plot topic is, what do you think of the $1 rule proposal in Michigan?
Oh man, Art, you're just holding me over the fire, aren't you? So I got to be like, I have been very vocal and very involved in trying to make or advocate for positive change in Michigan for about the last 12 years. And we have always been in the camp of antler point restrictions. We've always had a combination license, or we have for, 30 years, which is a $1 and or $2 system. And we would advocate for having antler point restrictions on both tags. Very widely, known that it works. We have a big area in Michigan. We have 12 counties under antler point restrictions for the last decade. It is some of the best hunting in Michigan. Why they won't do it statewide, I don't know. We have tried and tried and tried. It has failed every time. So this year, with the department has recommended a $1 rule, and with no antler point restriction. And I got behind it once I know several of the commissioners, one in particular I talk to often, and I called him and I said, hey, are you going to put an antler point restriction amendment to the DNR's recommendation? And he said, yes. I said, okay. So that's when I started getting heavily involved in advocating for $1 with an antler point restriction. I took an incredible amount of heat for this. I have been raked over the coals on social media, but at the same time, I've gotten a ton of support. And at the end of the day, Michigan shoots more bucks than we do does, and that is terrible management. Consistently, year in and year out, we're shooting more bucks than does. And so by switching to a $1, so the new combination license is a $1 with a doe tag, or an either sex tag with a doe tag for the combo license. Okay. They did not approve the antler point restriction, but I am still in the camp that $1 tag is going to make a significant difference moving forward. It might not be as quick, but within the next few years, I guarantee you guys are going to think twice before they pull that trigger on a 6-point in October.
Right.
Like, I promise you, because before they said, well, I'm going to shoot this decent buck because I have the second tag to fall back on. And then there's hunting for the second buck, and they're not shooting any does.
Right.
Like, 80% of the hunters in Michigan don't shoot any does. It's like, no wonder we have such a huge issue. And so I think that the one buck is going to be a positive step in the right direction. And I think that we're still going to advocate for having an antler point restriction applied to that at some point, because I think it will make it that much better. The 12 counties in the Northeast are now a one buck with an antler point restriction. And I think that they're going to see even an improvement yet again in their hunting. Okay. I've been ridiculed for calling it a mulligan tag, but you have a mulligan tag in your pocket, you're going to be far less selective on your first buck that you harvest.
Right.
So that's where I'm at with it. Would I have rather have had antler point restrictions on a 2-buck system? Yes. But we were always told we couldn't do a 1 buck without getting legislative approval. Well, we started going down that rabbit hole and proved that we could. And so I'm proud of our DNR for advocating for a 1 buck rule, because they kind of stuck their neck out. And honestly, at the end of the day, it might end up costing them some revenue initially, but it's right for our resource. And I think that's where everything gets clouded over, is just because these guys want to shoot 2 bucks, they're losing their ever living minds. But 2 bucks is not what's good for our resource.
Right.
So if you're interested in conservation, get behind this 1 buck rule and shoot a doe. We've got some guys. I just went round and round with a dude online this morning. He said, well, just to spite the DNR, I'm going to fill all my doe tags with button bucks this year. I'm like, man, that is insane. Like, you're going to screw yourself and everybody else around you over because you're upset with the decision that the Natural Resource Commission made. Got you. Makes you are absolutely what's wrong with this state.
But
he is the problem.
Yep.
He is the problem. Like, you're going to shoot 10 button bucks just to spite them. Like, give me a break.
Yeah, we could go down that rabbit hole with turkeys here in Wisconsin too. And I got my opinions on that, and I think the DNR is out of their freaking mind. But on unlimited tags and these guys shooting 20 to 30 turkeys just themselves, well, I can. Well, great. You can jump off a bridge too. Does that mean you want to or you have to? I mean, no.
Exactly.
So yeah,
just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right. and so yeah, we could go down that rabbit hole on both. But I did not, prior to asking you that question, I did not know your opinion on that. I did not know your stance on that. I've just seen it, plastered all over social media and the news and everything else. So.
Yeah, it's gotten national attention,
right,
for sure, because Michigan has historically just been, it is like an act of Congress here in mid-Michigan, Newaygo County, to get a buck to 3 years old, let alone, 4 and 5. Like, we've owned this property for 45 years, and I can count on one hand how many 4-year-olds I've had the opportunity to hunt here.
Wow.
It is terrible. And, you have to, by the same token, we have to keep our expectations in check. You can't shoot what's not here.
Right.
And I've gotten ridiculed also for shooting a 3-year-old last year in Michigan. I said, well, listen, I picked out the 2 biggest bucks that we had that I knew were on our property. And those were the 2 bucks that I targeted. They were 3-year-olds. Like, we don't have a 4-year-old. Right. So I passed up 5 3-year-olds the previous year, and every single one of them was killed. Well, I'm not going to put all this time and money and everything else, taxes and, into this property. And my dad has sacrificed a lot for us to have this property over the years. And if you don't have 4-year-olds, you can't shoot 4-year-olds. So, we picked out the 2 biggest bucks, and those are the ones that I hunted, and I shot one. We went to a 1 buck rule on the property last year, and I shot it October 2nd. And guess what? I called it a successful year. I still engaged in the hunting camp experience, or the cabin experience. I just was able to, hunt with other people. I was able to, shoot a couple does off the property, have breakfast ready for the guys when they come in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody's freaking
Right.
out because they can't, hunt to shoot their 1 buck. Well, yes, you can.
Right.
Absolutely, you can. Take a kid hunting. Go hunt with a nephew that is wanting to hunt, or a grandkid, or or whatever. A friend's son that has showed an interest in hunting. Take them hunting. Shoot a couple does. Have the camp experience, but sleep in a little bit, man. Enjoy.
Right.
Or and I get ridiculed because I travel all over the place. Well, 1 buck doesn't affect you because you hit 4 different states. Well, you can do that too.
Right.
Yeah.
There's nothing saying you can't. So
Right. It's priorities and what you want to spend your money on and what you want to do in life, because people are like, well, I can't do that. Well, okay, that might be true that you can't do that, but last week you went out and bought your 16-year-old a $25,000 vehicle. So,
right.
what is your choice? And I'm not saying that's wrong. If you have that money and that's what you want to do, then do it, but don't complain that you don't have the time to go hunting or the money to go hunting when you choose to spend it on other things. So it's whatever you choose. We've got a very good friend that it's funny because he's very, very tight when it comes to certain hunting things. And I'm not going to spend my money on that. I don't have the money to spend on that. That's ridiculous. And then he'll go out because he loves to fish and he'll buy $1,000 fly rod. Right. And I'm like, well, that's fine. You can do that. That's what you choose to do. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but that's what they choose. And so
and don't ridicule me for what I choose to do.
Right. Exactly.
So, I think overall, one of the big pushbacks was that, we have a fair amount of hunters that live in southern Michigan that travel, to northern Michigan to hunt. Well, everybody's complaining that once they shoot their buck in archery season, nobody's going to go up north. And I'm like, okay, well, let's look at the numbers. We have 600,000 deer hunters. Early archery season, hunters shoot about 52,000 bucks statewide. So that still allows 548,000 hunters that have tags in their pocket to travel.
Right.
So that is not, well, they're not going to be up there spending money at the mom and pop stores and blah, blah, blah. Well, a good share of them are still going to be available. And there's nothing saying that a guy can't run up north to experience a hunting camp experience and shoot a doe.
Right.
I mean, and again, you can't, I say shoot a doe. That's not, you have to be mindful of your doe populations. There are some areas up north where, they don't have a huge doe population, but southern Michigan, I'm here to tell you, I know of about 5 different farms that I could walk up to right now and knock on the door and said, hey, do you care if I go and shoot a couple of does? They would say, use these block permits, go shoot as many as you want. Like, you don't always have to hunt for a buck. I guess is my point.
Right.
And if you want some venison in the freezer, I mean, absolutely run down to some of these farms in southern Michigan. And the everybody complains about the farmers here. Well, these guys go in and they get permission on these farms and they just hunt bucks, and then they don't ever shoot does. So the farmers are going, yeah, we're not doing this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to just let somebody randomly come in and hunt and then shoot a buck and leave and never see him again. Like, we need doe shot. That's how we control populations, is by doe harvest, not buck harvest. So some of it is, we're our own worst enemy. And I'm here to tell you, based on some of the responses that I've gotten and seen in regards to this 1 buck rule, man, hunters have to take responsibility, step up, and do the right thing and not shoot freaking 10 button bucks with their doe tags, and be responsible conservationists, not just takers of our resource. We are managers of our resource, not takers.
Absolutely.
And
100%, 100%.
So I have a problem with guys that are just, they're just buying a tag, going out, and a lot of the commissioners want guys to just be able to go buy a tag, go shoot a buck, whether it's a 4-point or spike horn, whatever it is. And because they only get hunt for 2 days a year. Well, one of my buddies said, Lincoln, if you only fished 2 days a year, you probably wouldn't eat much fish now, would you? And that resonated with me. Like, you're right. If you complain because you can only, again, it comes down to choices. If you're only choosing to hunt 2 days a year, we don't owe you a deer.
Right.
Just because you buy a license doesn't mean we owe you a deer. Or, so I don't know. There's a lot of complicated things. I don't want to sound like I don't care about those guys, because I do, because that is a real thing where, you might not be able to hunt very much. I know some young guys that are, in school, or young families that are in careers. Yeah, they might not be able to hunt that much, but, they got to take advantage of the opportunities that they have. And the more bucks that we can get through and over to an older age class, our rut is going to be shorter. It's going to be way more intense. If our buck to doe ratios are more in check, you reduce the length of the rut, so it's shorter, it's more intense. You're not having these bucks chase these does for months on end trying to get them all bred, because they will, and then dying in the winter because they're just depleted. The fawn drops, the fawn drop is a shorter period of time, which overwhelms predators. They can't possibly eat them all if they're dropped in a 10-day to 2-week period. Whereas if it's, if the herd is, or if the rut is longer, so is the fawn drop. So they're more susceptible to predation the longer you spread out that fawn drop, if that all makes sense.
Yep.
So many advantages to a 1-buck system that I think we're going to start to see. And nobody's going to be complaining about this in 3 to 5 years, in my opinion.
Awesome.
I think guys are going to be shooting the biggest bucks of their lives, and seeing the most bucks that they've ever seen. So that's where I'm at with it. right, wrong, or indifferent. Like I said, I loved having 2 bucks, 2 bucks, but it's not what's best for the resource. So.
Right. Well, awesome. Well, we appreciate you joining us today, and listening to obviously the product and how to maximize your food plots and your seed, and get the best growth out of those, and then your opinion on obviously the 1-buck rule that's happening, and but it's not only resonating there in Michigan, but that should resonate with a lot of people throughout the United States if they really want, like you said, to manage their herds a lot better. So
for sure. I think as hunters we need to, as hunters we need to step up and be mindful of what we're doing and how we're doing it, and overall everybody benefits. So.
Right.
But, as far as the product goes, Packer Maxx goes in food plots. If anybody listening has any questions, whether they're wanting to buy a Packer Maxx or not, feel free to reach out to us. We talk food plots all day. I guess I'm considered a professional, but, I've made every mistake there is to make. I've learned along the way. And, if you have questions, don't hesitate to give us a call, whether it's on the product or, on certain techniques or what the plan or whatever. So we're always available. Our contact information is at Packer Maxx with 2 X's. So Packer Maxx 2x's.com.
Awesome.
So that's my plug.
Yeah, that's great. And with that, we hope that everything today, the tips and all the other information on, the drop season for fawns and, bucks, and along with all the food plot stuff, will help you own your season. Follow Own the Season Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for listening.
Check back weekly for new episodes.